It's a real privilege to be here and to support Anjuman and to support our colleagues and friends at this time. One of the key things about times of chaos and change is it increases the need for communication. And actually people think I don't know what's going to happen, especially leaders and managers, and therefore they don't say very much, but actually the need for it has gone up. And I think this kind of thing that we are doing and Anjuman is doing is absolutely vital at this time for all of us, because this is the other theme. We're all in it together. It's a very interesting time. May you live in interesting times, as they say. And it's a time for people to adapt. So 2 weeks ago, I went on my first training program on how to present virtually. So you guys can give me feedback afterwards. And of course, you can check that I'm looking into the camera rather than looking at other things, and that I haven't put the light somewhere where the shine from my forehead wouldn't blind you, and all that kind of training. And this is the taste of what's to come, because we all have to adapt. We all have to learn how to do things in the new world in a new way. Now, we were going to have a 3-day workshop for everybody in Anjuman to work together towards a career development plan, a personal development plan. And that is still going to happen once the lockdown is over, once we can actually meet in person. But in this period, to leave everyone without communication, without support would not be right. So I really want to thank Anjuman for setting this up and letting it happen. Next, to follow all the best ideas from American sitcoms, this event is being typed in front of a live audience, because I have my own son and others here who are just finishing university and will be all in the same boat, needing the same kind of advice. And so it's very important that we have that discussion. It's been fantastically interesting, because if I was to tell you, or actually ask anyone at the end of 2019 that this was going to happen in early part of 2020, nobody would have believed it. Naturally, there are people who talk about supervolcanoes and talk about asteroids hitting the Earth or whatever else, but we weren't expecting it. It was utterly unpredictable. And that element of shock, that element of disbelief is still visible with governments, with companies, and with individuals. And I don't know if you guys feel the same. I'm finding that my friends are calling me and I'm calling them far more often than I did before. And what do I talk about? We talk about what's happening. We share views with each other of what's going on around the world and what information we have. And what happens after every one of those phone calls, I'm speaking personally, is my stress level goes down. And a few weeks ago, after several weeks of lockdown, I woke up one morning and I found myself accepting the new reality. And as soon as I accepted that new reality, also my stress level went down. My dear friend, Mr. Amelie, who I think is going to be on this webinar, tells me often now in this day and age that he's found that he's reprioritized what's really important to him in life. So yes, there is a threat here. Yes, there are worries here, but there is equally opportunity here. And as we'll talk about, there is an awful lot that is on the upside as well as a lot of threat on the downside. There will be winners, there'll be losers. And this is maybe the first time that our generation and even generation before has experienced a pandemic like this, but we have experience of what happens during traumatic change and chaos. We have experience of what works. And that's what I want to share with you. Those are the critical things about how we make sure that you become one of the winners in the times of change that we're talking about. So the structure of what we want to talk about is, I want to talk about how the world is seeing the change and what key changes are happening, especially in the economy, in the sector, in different particular jobs. I think that's important because that's sharing information. And I have no idea what's going to happen, but I, like all the rest of you, have been looking at this. And I'll tell you something, there is nothing that impacts your career more than if the sector or the company that you are going to be part of or you are part of already, if it shrinks or if it grows. If it grows, the opportunities multiply. If it shrinks, the opportunities become fewer. So it's really important to be aware and to plan your journey with a growth in the sector that you want to go to, or at least in the roles that you can actually fulfill. So, you know, the sector and industry is quite important. So I want to spend a bit of time on that, but we need to go very quickly through that. Then some insight into how companies typically react. And, you know, 34 years of corporate world, working in banks, working in fashion, working in energy, working in telecoms and FMCG, there is a natural reaction in the short term, and there is a reaction which is long term. And it's important for you to know that. And then the bulk of what I want to talk about is what can you do about it? Because that is the critical thing, is actually, okay, all very interesting, but, you know, so what? What are we going to do about it? Before we do that, I want to just very quickly check, you know, where everybody is, because emotionally, it's, we're all on a change curve. I don't know how many of you have seen this before. It's very old, but it doesn't stop it being true. We go through the initial situation where the old world ends and we have to reconcile ourselves to that change. And you go through a whole bunch of emotions, and I've gone through it as well. And you go through and you come out the other end having accepted what is the new reality, and then moving into action, and then trying to make sure that you have a new beginning. This change curve is important for me because it's true of individuals, it's true of companies, and it's true of governments. I mean, I literally see the whole idea of blame or all kinds of things coming with, you know, when politicians speak, and I see this change curve coming through loud and clear. And it's really important that we recognize where we are. I don't know if you guys have an understanding of where you are on this change curve at the moment. Just ask yourself that question right now. Am I stressed? Do I have do I feel confused? Do I understand what I need to do to move back up? Because the thing about this curve is the shallower the curve, the faster the recovery. Now, how bad is the situation going to get will drive how deep this curve is. Have you got any ideas about how deep you think it's going to be? How bad the post-world is going to be from an economic point of view? I certainly have been listening to an awful lot of different analysts and economists, and reading a lot, and going there. And there is a whole range of different people who are very optimistic. Certainly, I was talking to a CEO in telecom sector the night before last. He was very optimistic. Some people in the gas industry were very optimistic. My friends in the retail sector are very pessimistic, and so on and so forth. But I found this chart from Bain, which I know is a week old now, more than a week old, but I'm not sure that they've changed their assessment. They're assessing that the severity of what's happening is at 7 out of 10. So it's going to be severe for multiple economic sectors and in multiple geographic markets. And I think most of us can see that happening. And what that indicates is how quickly will the curve come back up from an economic point of view? How many quarters is it going to take before recovery? Now, throughout my presentation, I have taken the assumption of taking the worst. That doesn't mean that I think that's, well, I'm not saying that's not what I think. I'm saying I hope that's wrong, that we don't have something that is that severe. But my philosophy always has been, you prepare for the worst and you hope for the best. So in order for us to prepare ourselves, I'm saying that 7 and the severity of that is going to be something that we will talk about going forward. A lot of what's happening right now is also part of an existing set of trends that were going to happen anyway. But what's happened with this situation is they've accelerated those. New technologies, whether it's artificial intelligence, the whole move to automation for cost reduction and better access to your customers and employees, which is the digital transformation that everyone's talking about, the better use of virtual reality, robotics, these things are becoming far more real and they're accelerating. The amount of, for example, online sales and deliveries that people get, having a blended distribution channel, I don't think we're ever going to go back. I think retail is going to have to be a blended solution alongside e-commerce and online. The whole questioning of globalization, which was already happening, the shorter distribution lines, you know, having local suppliers, minimizing your risk, that's also something which definitely is being put in place and happening. And it will have massive repercussions for strategies like the Silk Road strategy of China and the global brands that we see around the world. Flexible working. Now, this has been going on for a long time. It's not new, but when companies realize that they can operate remotely, they can operate with a more flexible workforce, where is the motivation for them to go back to the old world? Where you have a lower cost and you already have the systems and process in place. So flexible contracts, especially unfortunately 0-hour contracts, are things that I think will carry on growing. Having more of an ecosystem, having small suppliers, outsourced services to you is going to continue to grow. Remote working is going to grow. So the whole idea of 9 to 5 sitting in an office will carry on for certain industries, but will also reduce because both sides are benefiting. The employees would prefer not to commute and be at home for a few days, and the employers, they will save on the cost of office space and other things. So those things are changed forever. I'm almost 100% sure. Same with sustainability. We've been banging on about how sustainable companies are, operations are. These are not things that are going to go back. The eco-friendliness of businesses and operations is going to be accentuated rapidly and is going to be global. And communication. Look at where we are now. This is not going to go away. We are going to use these tools. These tools are going to become part of our normal everyday activity. There are other trends. The trends to urbanization, to more cities, you know, the trend from the emerging market back to some of the more developed markets, the differences in income between the top and bottom of society. I don't want to go into those because we'll get into a very political other thing, but in terms of jobs, these will be very important. Now, let's look at what else there is. In terms of the overall impact on the economy, I've taken a very gloomy view. I'm thinking, and people are saying to me, this is not like 2008. It's not even like the early 90s, late 80s, you know, the downturn we had. This is closer to 1929. And for those of you who studied history, the Great Depression lasted 3 to 5 years. It was massive. And it wasn't quite as global as it's likely to be this time, actually. So there are people who are predicting mass unemployment. They're talking about generational debt, multi-generational debt. They're talking about asset values coming down. And they're talking about the fact that within now and this next 6 months, cash is going to be king as uncertainty will continue. We're not talking about 1 quarter or 2 quarter recession here. So batten down the hatches and get ready. You know, this is the worst case scenario, but here we are. By the way, if you got any questions or any comments, please put them in the chat. I'll try and answer them as I go along. Industries, there will clearly be winners and losers. I think it's fair to say healthcare, online services, telecom, food, home improvement, those are things which will carry on. People have found new skills. I am baking bread at least every other day, and I've never done that before. But I don't think I'll stop once this is over, even if, you know, the bread is cheap. The whole process has left a mark. This happens with people. Same with home improvement. Some losers. Retail was already suffering, and I think would continue. Travel will suffer, at least in the medium term. Energy sector, especially oil, not so much gas. And I'm not so sure about the difference between exploration versus production, but certainly production and distribution would suffer very much. Again, luxury goods in certain quarters, but not in others. I mean, the super rich are not going to be affected by it. So, you know, I'm not sure that the top brands, but some of the other luxury cars and others are predicting a downturn. Again, that was in the analysis in Bain and McKinsey that I looked at. Socially, local communities will grow. I'm already knowing my neighbors a lot more than I mean, I didn't know them before. Now we know them. Now we go out and clap for NHS and we get to know each other. Now communities are forming, communities across the internet, communities who are like-minded, communities that have shared interests. And your extended family becomes more important. They're talking about a spike in childbirth come in December, January, and February next year. And the sustainability agenda is going to become important to the whole community. Politically, the governments are going to become more interventionist. They're going to have to pay for this somehow, so higher tax will go alongside more stimulus. There are a lot of what would have been called socialist policies that are now being talked about by right-wing governments, like universal income or nationalization of certain sectors and industries. And these things are part of the trend that is likely to continue until the upturn. And to add to all of this, there are local factors. So let's not forget that UK is set to leave the European community at the end of this year. Let's not forget what's happened with the oil price and the impact that has had from the pandemic, but the impact it's going to have on the regions where oil is the main source of their income and source of prosperity. It's going to be really, really difficult for people to predict how that would go. I was having a chat with people, and again, no one knows for certain, but at least we are in it for about 9 months to a year, as far as the oil price is concerned, probably 2 years. So these are some of the very quickly high level macro things. Now, like I said, and I want to put a health notice on this, I don't have any crystal ball. These are stuff that I have found that is generally being talked about by economists, by analysts, elsewhere. This was the highest quality of the feedback that I've got, but we don't know. And we're in the world of chaos. In the world of chaos, if you're aware of the butterfly effect, small unpredictable things that we're not even seeing in our radar right now will have potentially massive impact on things that we are talking about. What they'll be, who knows? But you need to keep aware all the time. So, how will this impact the jobs? The types of jobs that are likely to go with the trends that we were going on, AI and other things like that, are repetitive manual work, and also work that came from the industries that are shrinking. Industries such as retail, industries such as travel. You saw what was happening just now with British Airways, with 12,000 redundancies. This is the tip of the iceberg, unfortunately. Oil industry will do the same. I mean, in reality, it's like this. If there was an outlook that there was going to be a bounce, then the companies will look at this and say, it's not worth it for me to pay a redundancy, which is costly for me, and then go through the process of hiring back once there's an upturn. If they're doing this, they believe that the recession that their industry will suffer is going to be multi-years. Otherwise, if it's just multi-quarter, it's not worth it. But some of these jobs losses are going to be replaced by high-quality jobs. No doubt about it. The question is there going to be enough high-quality jobs? the types of jobs that are going to grow, new technologies, you know, things like the new industries in genetics, space, are going to carry on growing. But some sectors that will grow, generally, I think people care will grow. Therapy, personal development, healthcare, all of that, analysis, but also supply chain. People are going to evaluate their supply chains. They're going to have to think about reducing risk and having multiple suppliers, some local, some international, and really think through how that would work. Again, friends of mine who are at the top of that industry are very actively looking at that for some of the major players. Geographically, it's not all going to be the same. How China is going to be affected and the Far East going to be affected. The Middle East, I mean, I spent 9.5 years in Dubai. People in Dubai now are predicting 20 to 30% reduction in the overall population as soon as travel is allowed. Imagine if 20%, 30% of a population of a country was suddenly to leave, what impact that would have on every industry almost. And same in other sectors, depending on which industries, what sector they're going to, geographically, we will not all be the same. There is some discussion about whether there'll be more collective resistance to some of these moves by the companies by unionization or collective action. I'm not 100% certain about that. I'll put it here because there were people talking about had a possibility of that happening. So, what do you think companies would do short term? Short term, remember, the companies would be in the same shock as the rest of us. So they would immediately try to go into fortress mentality. Cost reduction, redundancy for people, let's reduce our risk, let's go into survival mode. Therefore, any investment will have to save money and for real. Nothing promised in 5 years, 8 years, immediate return. We're going to stop recruitment because we're making people redundant. Those two things go hand in hand. Risk aversion means that they would hire experts with proven capability, and therefore taking a chance on high potential and on growing people will go down in the short term. And they will go for things that are urgent rather than important. Survival mode right the way through. They will mainly get people they know, internal moves, or people that have been recommended to them. Again, this is a risk reduction strategy. And then they will go through the acceptance of the new world. They will take a view about what's going on in this world, what's happening. And they will need to adjust their operating model. They will need to follow their growth, follow the money. They may very well try to have partnerships or acquire new capability on new markets through mergers and acquisitions, through partnerships. They will need, within the new model, new skills. And that's where opportunities exist. I'm guessing that this will happen within 6 to 9 months from probably now, where companies emotionally would be in a place where they'd be accepting the new way, accepting the new world, and adjusting, and opportunities will then come up. The flexible work structure, I have no doubt will continue. There is no reason for people to go back to the old-fashioned way of working. We've still got a lot of companies, especially some of the big companies, that have cultures that are leftovers from the industrial age. The power dynamics of a hierarchy, where the line manager has to see the employee to feel that they're in control of the employee. Those things have to go. And quite frankly, good riddance to bad rubbish. They were way out of their date. And we need to be managing a network of talent and managing people through results and through proper target setting and alignment. And the power structure of the cultures, especially some cultures that are very top down, are going to suffer. The growth area as well as the core area, people are going to want to double that strategy. We need to be very sure that our cash cows and where our bulk of our revenue comes is safe, but where's the growth going to come from? And those dual strategies will be the focus. And of course, at that point, they will be thinking about new ways of recruiting and developing their people. Again, the new technologies provide an awful lot of new tools in how to do that. I think there'll be a massive growth in the use of LinkedIn. It already has been in recruitment, but that's going to become the norm now. And other tools will come along that will help them and automate a lot of these processes and systems, including automating learning. The classroom courses and the kind of courses where you're sitting and being talked at, which have been proved not to be so reliable and effective, will become less and less used. And of course, you've invested all this time and money, retention. Retention of the talent will grow and grow. What this will mean is that there will be even greater differentiation between the pay and remuneration for those people with the capabilities and skills that are needed for the future. I mean, we're already finding this with people who are expert in digital transformation, for example, data warehousing, for example, and some of these other key skills, and with everyone else. And, you know, I'm not talking about this necessarily in a hierarchical terms, in terms of directors and CEOs pay differential with the base employee being greater, but I think I am talking here about the people with the right skills and the right capability, being able to demand what they want. Here's the other thing. There's a lot of research that shows that actually the quality of leadership is far from what is required and has been lagging behind. I've worked in 23 different countries, all those industries, and let me tell you, quality leadership is rare and but was undervalued because political organizations go for tribal behavior. This person is in my team. I've become a senior director. I'm going to take them with me. And I did some research in Vodafone that showed that something like 75% of poor leaders have poor leaders reporting to them and are coming up with them through the organization. The reality of what's going on in the market and the ability to manage change and adapt, those guys haven't got it. And they'll be found out. So quality of leadership, inspiring communicators, these are not going to be things that are going to be bluffed. I mean, we are finding that with the politicians, yet alone business leaders. Actually, I'm very happy about this one, I have to say. And employer brands. My goodness, how people behave during this current situation is going to really affect how customers view them now. I don't know if you're getting the weekly newsletter from the Tesco CEO or the letter from Amazon CEO, or as I was coaching a telecom CEO about his weekly briefing to his employees. Emotional capital being built with your customers, with the community, and with your employees is going to become hugely important. So corporate social responsibility is going to be a massive growth area. And the way to do that in a sincere way, in a way that's believable, is going to be incredibly important. Along with that will be the stuff to do with the environment, to do with the community, and to do with you know, good practices. Those things are definitely here to stay. Okay. So just a quick poll. How many of you have a career development plan right now that you're happy with? Can we just ask, put the poll up, Ramijan?
Yes, just 1 second.
Sorry, I rattled through really fast. There's a lot of stuff there. But by all means, I'm happy to answer questions or deal with anything during this time and also afterwards. So just tell me, you know, how you feel about your career.
So the votes are coming in. I'm not sure if everyone can see them already, but we've got almost everyone has now voted. Yeah, I think that's everyone.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I think things are going to get tougher for people who manage their careers in a very average way. that's not necessarily just because I think the economy is going to go into a difficult time for a long, although that is a very important factor. I just think the sophistication of where we are going to and what we're going to do is going to require career development plans to be done in a more professional way. So I want to spend the rest of the time just very quickly talking about things that I know have worked. And I also want to say that if you are able to do something about things you're worried about, it will help you get towards acceptance and reduction of your stress by a call to action. So, first things first, you are a product. So, hang on, since we had the poll up, the slide isn't working. Oh, here we go.
We can see the slides. Yeah.
It's working now. So what can you do about you? First and foremost, we go back to every strategy theory you want to think about. I mean, I'm almost thinking, go back to Sun Tzu, The Art of War. I don't know how many of you have read it, but the first thing is intelligence and information. Unless you have high quality information and you know what's going on, you are not going to be able to have any strategic plan. To know where you're weak, to know where the opportunities are, to know where the competition is, to know what's happening. And in this modern day, there is no one place you go to for high quality information. You have to have many eyes and ears. Look at things from many different directions, both yourself, but also within your community through mutual support. Talking to your colleagues, talking to people you trust and saying, what's happening? What do you know? And also, the more different those people that you talk to, the better the quality and range of the information that comes to you. Because if people are more like you, they're likely to get the same information from the same source. So different people, different places. Stay informed. Be careful. I always say this to my daughter. Be careful of your perception. Check reality. Constantly check reality. And you have to do this constantly because things will change. Think of yourself as a product. So what is it that you do? What is it that product represents? What solution does that product provide to what problem? Thinking of yourself as a product allows you to come up with a marketing plan that will help you package things right and to have a very solid plan for various different types of situation. The product idea is, here is my technical capability. Here's the experience that I have, or any qualifications I have. Here's the experience I have, but also here are the personal attributes that I bring. And instead of thinking of this as something huge, and when we run the workshop, hopefully after the lockdown is over, we'll go into this in a lot more detail and help people actually physically together build this on a template that we've got and through an active workshop. But for here, have a think about it. No more than 3 or 4 things that make you different and unique. It has to be the USP. So second to that, what is it I do, but I haven't shown it yet in a work situation? So this is existing capability. It's your stretch capability. This is, yes, and my product can do this too in this market that I've not been in before, but it works in that market. Next is example and proof points. No more than 4 examples, no less than 2 for every attribute you want to sell. You could prepare this well in advance. Imagine you ran into Warren Buffett or Bill Gates over in an elevator and they show an interest, say, who are you? What do you do? How do I know you're any good? Bang, bang, bang. Next, you need to think about the new potential that you want to create for yourself. That could be technical. These are new capabilities, growth. I mean, I just showed you that even in my age, going on training program, learning new things. If you ever stop learning, you become irrelevant. So what are the new areas? How will those new areas match the needs of the market. If you already can have a view about what's needed in the market that you want to move into, develop those capabilities, build them into your product, come up with the example. Communication and leadership and teamwork in the new world, because of the complexity of what we're dealing with, because of the uncertainties that we're dealing with, are not going to be qualities that are, how shall I put it, up for debate. We all have to improve our communication skills. We all have to constantly improve our team working and our leadership capability if we're in that position. And all of us at some point will be in a leadership position, whether formally or informally. Then, having done this, what's your brand? You have to package that product. The packaging is an all-embracing idea. It's not just about clothes and looks and style, although that's part of it. That's our real world. It's about how you project, how you come across, how people can see you in that role, how people can visualize you in that space, how credible you come across on the first contact. I mean, I've actually got some problems with the theory and the research that came up that said that, you know, 75% of the time they make the decision about you in the first 7 seconds. I don't think that's actually true. I think that was not a very good study. But the idea behind that is not wrong. People make decisions based on perception, not on reality, on your brand. So we're here, we talk about writing a CV. CV is not a factual statement about everything to do with you and what you know and what you can do and where you've been. It's an advertisement. It's a marketing document. All it's designed to do is to get you a meeting. That's it. And how you differentiate yourself from the tons of other applications you get. When I was head of graduate recruitment for Nationwide Building Society, in those days, of course, everything was paper. I used to get 6,000 applications. I used to read 50 a day. And with the best will in the world, number 49 to 50 didn't get the same attention as number 1 to 5. And this is the reality. It's got to be right brand. It's got to work. Branding is going to become more important. Okay, you got your product. Now what? Focus. Exactly what are the places that you want to project yourself at? If it's within the existing company you're working with, fine. Which next job, which area, what area of growth you want to go into? If it's in another company, okay, be very clear. That's why people talk about having multiple CVs. Because for different places, you highlight different examples, you use different language, you maybe even have a different style. Because it has to fit that culture, it has to fit that market. Network, you know what they say about the importance of buying a house? There's only 3 things you need to consider. Location, location, location. I almost feel it's exactly the same here. For you to succeed in your career, network, network, network. The only thing I would say is the quality of that network. How wide is that network? How many of the decision makers and gatekeepers for the roles are in that network? How wide is it? Second thing is, how warm is it? Do they recognize you? Would they reply to a message? And the third element is, how interconnected are you? How many other people do you have whose network you can leverage? The new technologies that we're talking about, and I'm not selling LinkedIn necessarily, but that's an important one, are vital for the future. Virtual events like this, building communities and friends, mutual support, both in terms of really understanding what's going on in the world, but also in terms of opportunities being made visible to you, or actually a reference being made for you. A promoter. If you've got specialist skills, communities that are creating conferences, virtual websites and periodicals, absolutely imperative. And this need is going to increase and increase. So if you guys haven't got a clear idea of how to keep your network warm, how to expand your network, this is important. Look, you can't have a great product which has been properly branded if you got nowhere to show it off, if you got nowhere to project it. You need to be aware of how talent acquisition processes work. There is a lot of automation at the moment. A lot of it's happening virtually. It's important that you practice, and every time you enter one of those processes, you give feedback, you get feedback from others, you give feedback to yourself, you invest time, you practice, and you do. You can improve your chances by up to 15% in the way you interact with recruiters, in the way you deal with assessment centers or assessment if they're asked to do. More than 15%, probably not, but believe me, 15% makes a huge difference. So you need to be familiar with the rules of the game and how they are going to be applied. Now, everything we've said is within the context of the pandemic. But everything we said is relevant forever. There is no one-off career plan. You get a job, okay, what about the next job? What about being successful within that job? How is you being, for example, staying aware of what's going on going to ever not be important? How is you not expanding, growing your capability and your product is ever not going to be important? Or your brand being expanded? It's forever. You need to have a plan, because if you don't know where you're going, you'll probably end up somewhere else. Change will happen whether we like it or not. A lot of it will be unpredictable. But if you know, my favorite saying is General Montgomery. He said, when going into battle, I found all plans to be useless, but planning to be invaluable. Because if you have a plan, you can modify it. But if you don't have a plan, you're lost. So we will support you as a community. Anjuman will support you. I will support you to ensure that this community becomes the top 5%, becomes a winner, catches more of the opportunities, less of the threat. You are not alone. We're all in this together. And this is how you succeed in times of change. There is a direct correlation in change theory, in phase transition theory, about the number of attempts and reiterations and eventual success. Have a go, improve it, improve it, improve it till it's right. Go and try it. It doesn't work, modify it, get feedback, change it, keep going. But what it requires from you is grit. Things are going to be tough. I believe that. So you can't give up. Stay strong. There is no mistake. There's only learning. Constantly learn, come back, be resilient, be persistent. Grit is one of the key differentiators between the ones that make it to the top and the ones that just go with the flow. And like every other market out there, if you go with the market, you will go up sometimes and you'll come down, but you won't be at the top. It's the people that go beyond and do things at a different level. And this is the recipe. So, question and answers, I guess. Oh, shall we do a poll now? What do you think, Ramin John?
Yes, absolutely. I'll just bring up the other poll.
Let me close this presentation and thank you for your attention, as it says here. Okay. So
we have the other poll just up now. Hopefully everyone can see it.
I hope I haven't affected people too much.
We hope you have.
Well, not meant in terms of the pessimism. Here, do you want to come sit here with me?
Oh, sure, sure.
So you'll be in the audience now.
All right. I'll be in the audience. Yes, I'll be here.
I think we were almost exactly 45 minutes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I think we started a couple of minutes late, so you've kept perfectly to time. Thank you.
Not at all. I did rattle on really fast, so I do apologize if I was really too quick for some on some points. There's a lot to talk about. So it's pretty even, actually.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, pretty even. 3 years, 9 months. Yeah, I guess that's right. So, should we answer some of the questions?
Yes. So I think you can see them hopefully in the chat. Would you like us to read them out for you?
Why don't you select the questions for me, because I wasn't following right the way through. I didn't have the chat up. It didn't come up.
Yeah. So I think actually I'll let Shirin read them out if she has.
God, there's some really good ones.
Okay, sure. Hi, everyone. So I'll be sharing a question that I wrote. Can you discuss opportunities for our generation? For example, where is there opportunity amidst these uncertain times for those entering the workforce or in early stages of their career who are worried?
Okay. I think there's lots of opportunities. And I'm someone who takes a historical perspective. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of an economist at the turn of the century called Malthus, who came up with the idea that we're all going to starve to death because the growth of the population and the food supply was not going to match. And actually what happened was food production multiplied because of the creation of all kinds of new techniques and fertilizer. And I see the same thing. I think there will be work. And in fact, I see work becoming more meaningful work. And the work that's going to go is going to be work that probably people won't miss. There will be work in the new technologies. There'll be work in the new sectors. Whether you believe, as I do, that things like AI, genetics, robotics, virtual reality, space, all these sectors are going to explode. But there will also be some growth in particular sectors like healthcare, like well-being, therapy. I don't know, but I really believe that. I also believe the new ways of working are going to suit the new generation more. As I said during the presentation, I don't mourn the old world. I think the old world was hanging on to the Industrial Revolution theories that are way out of date and no longer fit for purpose. There was a question that I just saw about quality of leadership. My God, I've been doing leadership training, leadership assessment since 1987. And I go from country to country, and I'm amazed at the basics that leaders are, or how bad leadership really is in big companies. And I've seen statistics that show how poor leaders get promoted because of politics or because of tribalism or because of all kinds of prejudices. I think those things are going to go. And I'm very optimistic, and I think it'll be good for the new community and for the younger people going in. And I think you will have more meaningful work. It'll be work that you care about. It'll be work that is ecologically correct for companies that are very aware of their impact on society going forward. Being very specific, because I don't want to just answer your question with a very general thing. I think analytics, people who are able to analyze things, solve problems, complex problems, solve multi-dimensional issues, and being creative in how they do that, those things will increase. Definitely will increase. And the work that will disappear would be things that are repetitive.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I think now we'll move on to Ramin's question.
Oh, well, I think you've mostly covered my question in your answer to Shirin. So,
all right, let's talk about Kion's about startups. Is that all right?
I was just going to ask if going by the next question, if Yasmin might want to ask her question.
Okay, fine. Go, you manage that, please.
Hi, thank you. That was really insightful. I was going to ask, so a lot of people my age are learning how to code. And so I was going to ask, do you think that we can stay, sorry, my landline is ringing. I was going to ask, do you think we can stay competitive in the future world of work if we're not learning those skills, like how to code? A lot of my friends are just taking online courses, and I was watching a video that said not everyone should be a coder. So I'd like to see what your thoughts are.
Well, I think the new technology, especially things like new languages, new ways of being, are going to become vital. And I think a lot of the emerging markets would jump over the developed markets. I saw a lot of projections that some of the emerging markets are going to become more technologically savvy and are going to be putting the systems in place, whereas a lot of the Western countries, because of the infrastructure that we currently have, are going to be lagging behind in due course within, I think, the next 10, 20 years. I don't know if you are finding the same thing, but I'm finding that my mother and my grandmother are also learning how to use Skype and Zoom and other things. I think, you know, if you take that technology savvy down to the other level, then absolutely. We all need to become really better at these tools. A few of us, and I see Hossein there, and I see Mohit and others, we're of the generation where there was no internet, there was no email, that everything was typed and read and whatever. And I cannot even explain to you what a joy it was to find SuperCalc, Lotus 123, and then Excel. I mean, wow. And now the other things that you guys have, and the same thing will continue. I think technology will continue, and you need to skill yourselves up. Absolutely, absolutely. Those skills. But Yasmin, you have to be clear about where the demand is and how much that demand is. So be aware, go out there. Who are the people asking for this? How much are they prepared to pay for it? Is it likely to be automated at any time in the future? Is this a skill that's going to be in demand? So, I mean, I can say the same thing about languages. There's a lot of people saying, why should I learn English? I want to learn Chinese. A few decades ago, some of us will remember, people wanted to learn Japanese. But that's long gone now. So again, there's a lot of things, and it comes from your view about what's going to be in demand, and then go for it and learn it.
Thank you. I guess I have to go and find a coding course now.
If that's where you want to go.
Right, so next we have the question from Kiana, who's asking if given that many startups are hiring and we expect tech to continue, especially e-commerce in the short term.
Yeah, I think that was more of a comment from my end. I couldn't help
fine.
myself. But yeah, I just want to send the encouraging message that it is scary and it's doom and gloom, but the reality is that we're seeing growth in tech, especially in areas where are inversely affected by coronavirus, like e-commerce. And you know, we're hearing a lot of hiring freezes and various things, but what I'm seeing firsthand is actually certain companies that managed to pull in funding right before the crisis. A lot of companies are being very vigilant about their cash, and once things start looking up a bit, which I believe will take a few months, but it will happen, and a lot of the investors are counting on that, there will be quite a bit of hiring in tech. So, and you don't have to be a coder. If you look at the World Economic Forum bits, you actually will see that a lot of the skills that are skills of the future are about human skills. And I think Masood referred to that as well. So yeah, just a comment there.
Just remember, startups are wonderful places to go. If they grow, you grow with them, and that is going to be fantastic. And it's a high risk strategy because we know the number of startups that don't make it necessarily. But it's a fantastic place to learn anyway. I mean, I've been involved with training people in incubators, and I'm already involved with a couple of startups. It is a really nice environment to cut your teeth and learn to be doing multiple things, because like any, and I've done 4 startups in my time. You know, everybody does everything. So it's a great learning opportunity. Next question.
Yes, so the next question, I think if Hassan, if you would like to read out your question, otherwise I'll read it out for you.
Sure.
So thanks for your presentation. It was very helpful. Just a quick question. We talk about technology and new skill sets. So what I have seen recently, the trend in the market is that there are a high demand in technology, especially new technology, AI, and in these domains. But underneath all these jobs, they can be easily offshored.
Yes.
And this is a bit like short term, we see a high demand because they are, as you mentioned, they are, so the first level repetitive job, they're going to be replaced by AI. But AI, because it is a well-defined, it is not a human, I would say, subjective skills, it can be easily offshored. And there's no reason to keep people, a good coder here is like in Mumbai is 5 times, in Poland is 10 times cheaper. So what would you, how would you say over the next 5 or 10 years, which sort of skill sets to gain to succeed in this job market?
Very good question, Hassan. Listen, the truth is, it's a more complex answer, if I may, because there's offshoring, but there's also inshoring. So there is a trend about making certain capabilities you need being given to a specialist that has the critical mass to be able to do the right with the right technology and right capability. I mean, I am somebody who, for example, outsourced recruitment from Vodafone and from other companies multiple times. Why? Because I found that the machinery and the investment in technology we needed and the know-how, it's not our core capability. And in fact, a lot of the companies, one of the trends was you keep your core capability because that's important. Everything else, because you want to have a flexible operating model, you outsource. Now, whether you do that offshore or not, that's a different thing, because I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot less offshoring. I think a lot of the globalization is going to be pulled back now. I think people have found that, for example, the benefits of call centers in India, which happened all through the 80s and 90s, and certainly, I mean, in Vodafone, we spent billions buying companies there in order to benefit that. We're not as good an idea, and that customer relationship being what it is, for example, the call centers we had in Scotland had much better customer feedback, etc., and the quality is going to be important. Also, what we said about the supply chains, that actually there's going to be potentially more borders, potentially some clawback on the globalization, maybe a lot of the technical skills are available cheaper elsewhere, but there's a risk associated with that, which, so it's not a very clear and very simple landscape. But the key thing is companies are going to continue to focus on their core capability and as much as possible find a better quality and definitely potentially cheaper expert to do ancillary services for them. You talk about education and coding and things like that, for example, in markets like China, like Vietnam, like places like Iran or even Turkey, the quality is very good for technical capability. And the value in terms of salary is 1/10 or 1/20th. It doesn't even come up. But then the complexity of setting up this way of doing business with them and to get quality return from them is not so simple.
Thank you. So I think the last question we have, also we are overrunning. If anyone else has further questions, please send them through. But the last question is from Sarah Javadian, if you would like to ask it, please.
First of all, hi, I would like to thank you for your great speech. It was very informative and great. I have a question regarding, I know that one question is what job will survive and what will stay, but another question is that who can survive, because right now, especially in the UK, there are many international people, and me myself, I'm an international student. And one of my plans for the future was for looking for a job in the I'm in the section of child psychology, and I think this is one of the jobs that will be needed. But as an international student, I don't see a very good future right now, because I feel countries will try to restrict and reduce as many people as possible. So I would like to know, what do you think in this regard? How is the job market is going to respond to international students and recruiting them? Is there any hope or anything?
Yeah, it will be different sector by sector. I have some experience, for example, of the space sector, and I know that the government, like every other government on the planet, as far as I could see, is actively encouraging global talent to go to their center. So President Macron goes on TV and says, if you work in the space sector, if you worked in high technology, we will, in France, welcome you and give you house, give you whatever, and we'll go for that. And I know, for example, in the space sector, Dubai, Vietnam, Luxembourg are creating centers and pulling people in. So it'll depend on the sector. But from a point of view of the political environment, it does feel to me that barriers will go up, that it'll be less easy to travel and to go get jobs elsewhere. And that's not just because of Brexit and Britain leaving the European Union. I think even within European Union, there might be issues that will come up under the current situation. Once the economic situation becomes harder, once Germany goes into multi-quarter recession and reduction, things will change. I think you need to be aware of the sectors. The sector that you're talking about, I see as a big growth area. I think all caring professions will go up. Look, everything in this world is interconnected. So we talk now business, we talk about companies, we talk about the economic impact. The truth is the social impact is going to be massive. Massive. The political impact is going to be massive. The cultural impact is going to be massive. There is going to be an awful lot that we can't even predict at the moment. You know, I don't want to sort of constantly bring things from the newspapers, but for example, the amount of increase in child abuse or whatever that's come from the lockdown, or what, you know, this is not something that necessarily is directly relevant, but clearly the people who are working on that problem will have more work. You know, stuff to do with well-being and generally therapy, I think will grow. I think a lot of the arts will grow. I think, but very differently. Will people go to the cinema back again when the lockdown is finished? I'm not so sure, but will film as a medium continue to grow to be important as an art form? I mean, I'm hoping that history, as my son is a historian, will continue to flourish and be more and more important. But nevertheless, I mean, I think there will be all kinds of things, and it's important for us to keep visible and keep communicating with each other and sharing that. Because I want to say this again and again, if you are not well informed, you are not in a position to make the right decisions about what to do next. Now, because we're running out of time for the questions, I want to say, anybody that's got a question or has a point to make that they haven't had a chance to do here because we're in limited time, I am on LinkedIn. Find me, ask me a question, engage. I have time on my hand. We're here, you know, whatever. So I'm offering that. This is a community that's very dear to me and very important to me. I see Mr. Mahmoudi, Mr. Ameli here. Anjuman is about the next generation, and this is you guys, and it's really important for me that you continue your successes. You guys are brilliant, and we want you to continue to be the top. And if there is anything I could do, and I'm sure I speak for all of us, that we can do within this community to help, to guide, to provide, you know, open doors, whatever, then we will do it. You can count on this community, and Anjuman is very important as a representative of our community.
So thank you very much, Mr. Golshani. I think it's been a very, very good session. We had some very interesting questions as well. We will be trying to put a recording of this available. We haven't figured out exactly how yet. If you have asked a question or anything and you would like us not to include that, please, of course, let us know.